What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another video. I'm Michigan Sports Talk here, and in this one, we go over some key takeaways here from Michigan's 34-17 season opening win over New Mexico, as Bryce Underwood, Justice Haynes shines offensively for the Wolverines, and Bryce Underwood not looking like a true freshman, that's for sure. There's also a great balance offensively from Chip Lindsey in his first game as Michigan's offensive coordinator. We do go over some of the things Michigan has to clean up, some takeaways defensively here for the Wolverines, and a few players who really shined in this one. It's all going to be in this video and more, so let's go ahead and get right into it. Alright, so Michigan opens up the 2025 season with a 34-17 victory over New Mexico, and while it wasn't a huge blowout here for the Wolverines, they definitely controlled this game from start to finish with some mistakes in between here that kind of let New Mexico hang around. But overall, it was a great showing here, a great showing from the Michigan offense, which we will talk a lot about in this video. And how about the true freshman quarterback Bryce Underwood making his first start in a maize and blue uniform in the big house, and the true freshman absolutely shined. He put on his talents. He put his talents on display. 21 of 31 for 251 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. And when you go from last season's offense to this season's opener against New Mexico, it is a night and day difference between these two offenses. Chip Lindsey did a phenomenal job at his first game as Michigan's offensive coordinator. He put Bryce Underwood in a great position, especially early in the game, get some easy passes. And Michigan last season had very few big explosive plays in the passing game, but last night, Michigan had 4 passes greater than 20 yards, including a 39-yard reception to Channing Goodwin. I mean, we just haven't seen this from this Michigan offense in a long time. We didn't see it at all last season, and right away we get to see it here in the season opener, which is exactly what needed to happen. This isn't the typical smash offense that we're used to seeing here at Michigan. It is, it seems to be a lot more finesse than what we may have thought it to be, but I tell you what, when you look at the stat sheet, it is as balanced as it could have possibly been in Michigan's season opener. They had 251 passing yards and 201 rushing yards, with a total of 452 total yards. They had 7.2 yards per play. I mean, this is what Chip Lindsey brings to Michigan. The balance is what we really talked about in the offseason. That's what he did at North Carolina, and he put it right on display here in the season opener, and there's more where that came from. In last night's game, Michigan had more total offense than it did in all games in the 2024 season. They also had more passing than it did in all games in the 2024 season, and more points than it did in 12 games in 2024. So it is a new era here for the Michigan football program with Chip Lindsey, Bryce Underwood, and there's still a lot to clean up. Defensively, Michigan had a lot of penalties. There was, a muffed punt from Samaj Morgan, who needs to clean some of that up. Andrew Marsh fumbled it. He's obviously a true freshman, but he fumbled the ball in a kickoff that led to New Mexico getting 3 points. And then as far as offensively, Sherrone Moore not going for it on the 4th and 1 probably wasn't the right call. Frederick Moore did drop a nice pass from Bryce Underwood, should have resulted in a first down. Then Bryce Underwood also threw a nice ball to Andrew Marsh. He just wasn't looking. They weren't on the same page right there. So some of that stuff has to get cleaned up. But as far as Bryce Underwood, he didn't really do too much wrong. He looked calm, collective in the pocket, had no first game jitters whatsoever, and, without knowing it going into this game, you would not think this is a true freshman starting in his first ever collegiate game. So he definitely lived up to the hype. Again, 21 of 31, 251 yards, 1 touchdown pass to Marlon Klein, which was a beautifully set up play, and a great play from Chip Lindsey, and that was his lone touchdown pass. But he didn't make any mistakes, no turnovers, and for a true freshman in his first game, absolutely incredible. And obviously his arm strength was on display in this game. You saw it out there. He can zip that thing, and also had some nice throws on the run as well. One to Kendrick Bell, and then also, that 3rd and 14 pickup where he threw that ball to Channing Goodwin was a great throw and a great pickup. And Channing Goodwin had a great game, 2 receptions, 49 yards, and then Marlon Klein was the top receiver for the Wolverines. 6 receptions, 93 yards, 1 touchdown. He is going to be a great target this season here for Bryce Underwood. Samaj Morgan had 4 receptions, 33 yards. You saw Chip Lindsey, use him more differently already in a good way. And then Donovan McCauley had 4 receptions, 31 yards, and Kendrick Bell with 1 reception, 30 yards. And how about the game from Justice Haynes? He started this game. He is clearly Michigan's 1A running back, with Jordan Marshall being 1B, but he had 16 carries, 159 yards, and 3 touchdowns, and he showed why Michigan wanted him badly in the transfer portal. He's clearly going to be Michigan's right now starting running back. Jordan Marshall had 11 carries for 29 yards. I think, on some days, one of them's going to be on, one of them's going to be off. Sometimes it's going to be Haynes, sometimes it's going to be Marshall, but right now, Justice Haynes looking like that top back for the Wolverines, and he also had an average of 9.9 yards per carry and broke off some explosive runs there. So those are my takes offensively. As far as the defense, you could maybe even make the case and say that the Michigan offense looked better than the Michigan defense, which was kind of surprising, but the Michigan defense still forced 3 turnovers in this game. New Mexico only had 267 total yards. The Wolverines had 8 penalties, and a lot of them came defensively, including the Jayshon Barham targeting call, which absolutely was not targeting. Hopefully Michigan, appeals that, because right now he is out for the first half of the Oklahoma game, which is obviously, pretty big, but Michigan does have a deep linebacker room. We saw Cole Sullivan especially on display. They also got Jimmy Rolder though, but this Michigan defense, they did get a lot of pressure on the quarterback. They only had 3 sacks in the game, but New Mexico made it clear they were trying to get the ball out as quickly as possible. Michigan did have 9 tackles for loss, and for the first game of the season, the tackling was very, very good. But New Mexico was a very well-coached team. They did have a trick play for a touchdown. They got the field goal off Andrew Marsh's fumble on the kickoff return, and then the one drive where they scored, in the second half, in the third quarter, after Jayshon Barham's targeting call, terrible call, and then a missed 3rd down pass that was incomplete, and there was also, I'm pretty sure, an offsides in there on that same drive. And then Michigan, the defense was stout in the goal line, trying to get a goal line stand. They called pass interference on Jair Hill. That kept the drive alive even more. So that whole drive was a very penalized drive where the refs really helped New Mexico. But as far as the sacks, Cole Sullivan had 1. He also had 1 interception in the game. He put, a great showing there at the end of the game. He's going to be very special here. And also, how about the freshman Nate Marshall? At the end of the game, he was getting pressure on the quarterback, and he's going to be very special here as well. But Dominic Nichols, he had 1 sack, and then also Troy Bowles had 1 sack, 2 tackle for losses, the Georgia transfer linebacker, which was nice to see him out there because he was dealing with an injury in the offseason. So, and then Brandon Hillman also had an interception on a 4th down. Probably should have, patted it down, but, it went up and caught the ball. Can't really blame him right there. So, overall, this defense is still going to be elite this season. They still had, a pretty dang good game, especially when you factor in that, the quarterback Jack Lane had 4.5 yards per attempt, was pressured on 25% of his throws, and New Mexico only rushed for 50 rushing yards. The rest were passing yards in this one. Michigan also played a lot of players. They played 31 players on defense last night, including getting some young guys some playing time towards the end. So, we're going to find a lot more next week against Oklahoma, but I think the biggest takeaway here is obviously the Michigan offense. It's just looking a lot much better. It's balanced. It's just nice to have, a quarterback out there now that can sling the ball like Bryce Underwood. They still got to clean up on some details here, but all in all, for the first game of the season, I liked what I saw, especially offensively. Let me know what you guys think and your takeaways from the season opener. I wanted to talk about what Sherrone Moore said, though. He said, I thought the offensive line overall, the consistency that I saw throughout the game was really good. There's always the, hey, you could have made this block, you could have done this, but when you rush for over 200 yards, you feel pretty happy about that. And he said on the defense, that's what you've got to deal with when you've got a good D-line, you've got a good pass rush. Those guys are going to get the ball out as fast as possible. I thought our guys did a really good job of tackling for the most part, though. And he did say on the Jayshon Barham ejection that, that group is elite. They're 4 deep. We feel very strongly about that group, but we're going to talk about the ejection when we get to that point with the Big Ten and handling that because, we don't agree and we'll handle it from there. I also talked about Bryce Underwood. He said that, the real thing that we wanted to do, we didn't want turnovers. We had one on special teams, but I think he learned from that. But he said, to play the way he did, not turn the ball over, throw touchdown passes, and go down on that 2-minute drive. I couldn't do that as a freshman, so that was impressive. And he also had a nice block there, but Sherrone Moore said, during that play, stop, don't do it. But, he said, he loves it. He loves the game, loves football, loves the physicality. You don't want your quarterback doing that, but it perks you up a little bit, understanding and knowing he loves that part of the game. And Sherrone Moore also said, speaking on the upcoming Oklahoma game, that we'll be ready and we're going to prepare our tails off. He said, we've been preparing for it. We'll be ready for it. I'll give you more on Monday, but let us enjoy this one. So Michigan football opens up the 2025 season with a 34-17 victory over New Mexico, and now it's on to a big one against Oklahoma on the road. Going to be the biggest game next week in college football, but a solid performance, especially offensively here in the season opener. Gotta feel good about true freshman quarterback Bryce Underwood. Still got some, little details to clean up, but overall pretty good first season opener here for the Wolverines. But with that, that's going to wrap up this video. Hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, make sure to go ahead, drop a like, comment down below, and subscribe for more if you are new around here. I greatly appreciate it. And other than that, we will see you guys in the next video. Go Blue.